Fine. Now, turn the page. We have approach number 2, right? The Ramban is going to quote another source who is going to be what we're going to call approach number 2, and then the Ramban himself is going to disagree, and he's going to be approach number 3. Okay? So the rest of this is all going to be a Ramban. Okay, the Ramban is going to start out by quoting an older source than the Ramban, right? The Bahag, the Baal Halachos Gedolos, who is called the Bahag, right? And the Bahag disagrees with the Rambam in the Sefer HaChinuch, and he's going to say approach number 2, and then the Ramban will tell us what he really thinks at the end. Okay? Somebody want to read what the Ramban says quoting the Bahag? Go ahead, Jenny.
It seems that the view of the Baal Halachos Gedolos Bahag is that the count of the 613 are his decrees made to be exalted, and that he decreed upon us to do or to refrain from doing. Belief in his exalted existence that he made known to us with signs and wonders, and the revelation of his presence before our very eyes. This is the central point, the root from which all the commandments are born. This was not listed in the 613.
Good. Okay, according to the Bahag, what are the criteria for something to be considered one of the 613?
That we should see it.
That there is something to do or not to.
Good. Right, the 613s are do's or don't do's. Right? That's what he started out saying. Right? That the 613 commandments are things that he told us do or don't do. Right? Emunah is not do or don't do. Right? Emunah is that I believe that this whole system is true. Right? But it's not one of the 613 according to this opinion. Right? And that's why he says he doesn't list it as one of the 613 because it's not one of them. Right? Now, what exactly is it then? Right? Everybody agrees there is a concept called emunah. Right? So the Ramban quotes a midrash, right, to defend the Bahag, to explain the Bahag's position. Right? Jenny, you want to continue?
Sure. A parable. A king enters a country, and his servants tell him, make decrees for them. He responds, if only they would accept my reign, I would make decrees upon them. Because if they do not accept my reign, how can they fulfill their decrees? So said God to Israel, I am the Lord your God, you shall have no other gods. Just like you accepted my reign, so too accept my commandments. You shall have no other gods.
Good. Okay, so according to the Bahag, according to his midrash, which is the first mission, the first mitzvah?
Don't have other gods.
Good. Don't have other gods. Right? Don't do idol worship. Right? The first commandment was not a commandment. What was it?
Declaration.
Yeah. Good. It was the prerequisite for Hashem to keep going. Hashem said, I am Hashem your God. How do you feel about that statement? If you accept it, I'll give you number 1 of the 613 commandments. If you don't accept it, we can stop here. Right? First, you have to decide, do you accept my reign? Then we can talk about what do you have to do to accept if you accept my reign. Right? So, according to the Bahag, the emunah is not one of the 613 commandments. It's the underlying thing that we need to get clear so that we can keep the 613 commandments. But it's not in itself a commandment. Right? By the way, right, I keep calling them the 10 commandments. That's what we call them in English. What are they called in Hebrew? Good, the Aseres HaDibros, right? The 10 statements. Now, according to the Rambam and the Sefer HaChinuch, the first 2 sources we saw, is it appropriate to call them the 10 commandments? Yes, right? Because even the first one is a commandment. But according to this, is it appropriate to call them the 10 commandments? No. According to this, it's the statement and 9 commandments, right? And it's much more appropriate to call them the Aseres HaDibros, the 10 statements, right? The 10 sayings, 9 of which happen to be commandments. Yeah, Jenny.
Is this just a general statement to say you believe that God exists, or because the reason I'm asking is because I don't think that we could ever fully know God. We're always going to work on our own because God is infinite and there's always more aspects to strive to understand Him. So I just think that mitzvah is just always going to be there.
Right.
It's always going to be something. It's not just a yes or no.
Good. Right. So first of all, as we discussed last time, we'll discuss more next week, that you're right, that this is whether it's a mitzvah or it's the underlying statement, it's not a one-time thing. Okay, I accept, I believe, it's proven to me that there's a God, I know there's a God, now we can move on. Right? It's something we always have to work on. Right? Interestingly, the language that we've seen so far, we've not seen anybody who says you have to know there's a God. Right? We've seen the language that you have to believe there's a God. Look back at the first page. Right? The first, we saw Habakkuk said you have to live by your emunah. Right? Then we saw the Sefer HaChinuch said the mitzvah is to laha'amin, which means what? To believe. Right? Then the Rambam said a mitzvah rishona, he had tzivu shenitztavnu laha'amin be'elakut, again, to believe. Then the Bahag said it's not even a mitzvah to believe, it's a mitzvah to accept. Right? He said, so Dios elenu ba'osos umoti b'gilui hashchina leinenu hu ha'ikar v'hashoresh. Right? It's the root and the foundation. And then in the parable the Ramban just quoted, right? He says, let them accept, yikablu, right? Let them accept my kingship, right? So according to the Bahag, Emunah is accepting Hashem, right? It's not, working it out with lots of proofs. You might need to do that in order to accept, but it means I've accepted that there is a God, and therefore I want to know what his decrees are. Just like if a king says, I'm in charge now, right? And the people say, yes, we accept you as the king. You say, good, if you accept me as a king, start paying taxes, right? Here are all the laws, right? So according to the Bahag, the only word we see is that we accept him. Yeah,
Accepting like the 614th commandment or the part of the 613? I still don't.
Well, so again, the Bahag holds that it's not one of the 613, it's the prerequisite to the whole thing.
Then where do the other two come, or the other one come in?
Which one does he say is a mitzvah, the others don't? That's a good question, I don't know. Right? It's an interesting thing. The Rishonim, one of the things they did, everybody knew there were 613 mitzvahs, but there are machloksim between the Rishonim about what are the 613. The Rambam wrote the Sefer HaMitzvos, right, where he listed 613, and the Ramban wrote a commentary on that, right, disagreeing with him, saying, no, this one doesn't count as one of the 613, but this one should, right? For example, the famous one is the Rambam doesn't list tshuva as one of the 613 mitzvahs, and the Ramban comes and says, what do you mean? Tshuva is one of the 613 mitzvahs. There's a verse in the Torah that says do tshuva, right? So then they have to explain, well, why didn't the Rambam hold that one was one of the 613? And that means by necessity, the Rambam said something was a mitzvah that the Ramban didn't, right? And this is what a lot of the Rishonim were involved in, trying to figure out, what are the 613? We all agree there's 613, but what are they, right?
Why do we agree that there's 613?
Well, one of them is because of that Gemara we just saw, right? That said that the Torah, the gematria of Torah. Now, the problem is that Gemara seems to very clearly say that Emunah is one of them. So I'm not sure how the Bahag would answer that question, right? What about the Gemara that says that two of them were given by Hashem? According to the Bahag, only one of them was given by Hashem, right? So I'm not sure how the Bahag answers that question, right? Okay, but that's what he says, right? And so the Ramban finishes off explaining the Bahag on the bottom of the page. Accepting the kingship of Hashem is one matter, and the commandments and decrees are another matter, right? Meaning there's Emunah, and then there's the 613 mitzvahs. Okay? Turn the page. We'll see the Ramban himself, he just quoted the Bahag. Now he is going to tell us what he believes is the answer to this question.